Well, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are right now, and thank you so much for attending my keynote for SmartBear. I'm so excited to be part of this program today, and I can't wait to tell you some great stories and some good advices that I've heard along the way and share that with you today. A little bit about me. My name is Mike Lyles. I've been in IT for over 25 years, just reached 26 this year. I started out as a developer. Moved into the PMO, worked as a development manager, got into QA, fell in love with QA. I really loved what I did there. But I really love building teams and starting great teams, whether it's a project management team that I'm working with right now or the QA team that I'm working with. And it's been a very big privilege to work with a lot of people, to meet a lot of people at conferences and a lot of the events. I do have a new book that's just out. It's called The Drive-Thru is Not Always Faster, and it just came out in November. It's a motivational self-help book. Would love for you to try it. It's only 99 cents in ebook right now, so it's a great deal. If you want a signed copy, I can get you that as well. So let's get started. Before I really get too far into this, I really want to say a big thanks to SmartBear. You guys are really, really wonderful people. I love all the people that I work with there. I've done a lot of work with several of the people from the SmartBear team, and I'm really privileged and honored and humbled to be part of this program today. We're also a partner with them, and as far as a customer and a client with SmartBear, we just recently purchased the Ready API system, and our team is using it, and it's growing among our developers and our testers as well. So definitely, if you don't have this product, they didn't tell me to say this. I'm telling you myself. It's a great product, and it's a great company, great support, and they've been great to work with. So honestly, what presentation is good without Oreos? I mean, let's talk about some Oreos here. When Oreos started, it was just a plain cookie that we know today. You know, it was nothing more than 2 chocolate cookies with cream in the center, and it was simple, but it was great. And it was one of my favorite desserts or cookies that you can have, and it's really one that I really love. But Oreo went a step further, and they came out with double stuff, and then that became my new favorite. And I really loved the double stuff cookies as well. And forget about the old ones, you know. These are better. And then came Mega Stuff. Mega Stuff was amazing. Who cares about double stuff anymore? I now have Mega Stuff, and the thin cookies are a thing of the past. You know, Mega Stuff was the thing you bought every time you went to the store. And then they came out with the triple double Oreo, which really made my day. And I'm asking myself, can it get any better than this? This was the Big Mac of cookies. I mean, they had cream on both sides and a center cookie in the middle. And I'm thinking, Oreo, when are you going to stop? And they did not. I mean, my 2 favorite things is Nutella and Oreos, and the 2 together in a cookie. What else can you ask for? This was amazing. And Oreos even the Nabisco folks got even more innovative by putting the easy lift on there, which made it even more easy to open up and grab cookies, you know, instead of having to put them up and put them in a Ziploc or put them away. It's easy. You just open it up, you eat a cookie, you put it back, and I did that multiple times. But Oreo, I bet many of you don't know this. They have gift boxes. And if anybody wants to know what to get me in August for my birthday, it's August 29th, I'll be happy to receive some Oreo gift boxes. If anybody has any kids, babies, special occasions, you can order these online. Oreo took it to a new level. And then they surprised me. They really surprised me with Oreo Thins, because why do I want Thins? I want the cream. I want more cream, as much as I can get. Many times I would just eat the cream and not the cookie. And I'm like, what does Thins do for me? And if you're out there and you're saying, I love the Oreo Thins, then you're not a fan like me. But I'm just joking. I'm sure somebody wanted this, and Oreo made it happen. They went through various stages. But not long ago, they came out with the most. Now, what is the most? It's the craziest thing ever, because now you look at these 2 together, the original versus the big. The most stuff was amazing. And honestly, to be honest and to tell it to everybody here, to be a little transparent, it's almost too much. They almost took it too far for me. It was almost too much cream for me. But I want to use this as an example. that at the end of the day, it was still just an Oreo. But they went various directions, and they didn't stay the same. They didn't keep themselves following the same as every other cookie out there. They tried to do new and innovative things and do things that were different than the other folks. And that's the way we need to be. We need to think about being able to achieve greatness by refusing to accept the status quo. We don't have to be like everyone else. We can be different. The greatest leaders, the greatest people who have really done some great things out there in the world were people that said, I'm going to think differently. I'm going to do things different. And I'm going to go a different route. That's my challenge to you today. As you listen to this presentation, as you've listened to all the great presentations earlier today and this week, think about, how can I be different? You can be like John. John was definitely different. Can you pick John out in this? I know it's really hard, and I know it's really hard to figure out which one is John, but definitely John, he wants to stand out. You need to be like John. Now, when I was writing my book, my coach that was with me on the book said, you need to let the book speak to you. And I asked, what does that mean? And what they meant by that was, as you're writing the book and you get through chapter 1 and chapter 2 and 3 and 4, you might decide that chapter 5 is going to be a different story and chapter 6 is going to be a different path and you're going to go a different direction. And we learned that with the products that we work with. Testers especially. If you're a tester out there and you're looking at exploratory testing, really explore the exploratory testing, because exploratory testing gives you that ability to go beyond the boundaries, think outside the box, and find new and creative ways to explore the product to make sure it's doing exactly what it should be doing. If you're a developer, the best thing you can do is to think about, how could this product be better? Really understanding what the user wants and what the stakeholders want, so you can help work with the team to understand how you want to make the best product that's going to make that stakeholder really happy. You got to feel empowered to suggest a different approach or a different design. It's really important that you do this, because your inputs are important to the project, and if you think they're not, then you're not really thinking this through, because it's really important for your inputs to be given. And speak up. Let people hear your voice. That's how we define a paradigm shift across QA and across quality and across the development teams and the project team, is when you start thinking about, how can I give more and what else can I do and how can my inputs help the organization. Now, what about this picture? 6 months ago, nobody would have known what this was. If I'd asked you what this was, you'd have probably said, well, it looks like a gray tennis ball with some red lint on it. But you know what? I think everyone watching this right now knows exactly what that is. COVID-19 changed our whole world. It changed everything we're doing drastically. And it taught us that when things change drastically, we have to be ready to change with the world. We have to be ready. And it was a great example at a very high magnitude of things that are going to be much simpler within our project teams and our organizations. If we can handle this, we can all move to working at home and dealing with social distancing. We can do anything. But you know what? I think this graph is a very interesting graph. Because who would have guessed a year ago that toilet paper, disposable gloves, bread machines were going to be so high in demand? And who would have ever thought that luggage, briefcases, swimwear, bridal wear, all of those things were going to be really low in demand in a very drastic way? We have to be nimble. We have to be prepared, and we have to understand that when things change, we have to be ready to move with those changes. Organizations are figuring out how to handle, especially retail organizations and fast foods and restaurants. Folks are having to figure out, how do I handle the changes that are occurring right now? We're in a lockdown. How do I still do business? And what do I do as it's going? Ferris Bueller said in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, first of many 1980s references, is that life moves really fast. And if you don't stop and looking around once in a while, you could miss it. Things are going to change. Requirements are going to be modified. The final result is not going to be the same as what you thought it was at first. But just stay focused, stay involved, and you can modify your approach and come out with something successful. Now, I'm going to tell you again, the drive-thru is not always faster. I wrote a book about it, literally, and I love it. But when I share my book with people at the drive-thru window, they say to me, well, it may not be faster, but it's more convenient. And they're exactly right. And they're exactly right that it's more convenient, but convenience can't be the thing that drives us and our organizations and our teams and what we do. Convenience can't be the way that we're doing it. Sometimes there's a better, faster, and easier way, and it's not by following exactly what is going on around you and following everyone else. Sometimes you have to be different. Now, I will tell you this. Thanks to the lockdown, my book is having a difficult time selling that theory because the drive-thru is not only faster right now, it's the only way. But times are going to change again. We're going to be prepared when it does. Now, you've heard a lot of organizations and a lot of people that you've worked with and through the years talk about, we've always done it this way. But there's something worse than we've always done it this way. And that is everybody is doing it this way. You don't have to be the same as everybody else. Some of the greatest organizations are the ones that decided we're not going to do what everybody else does. We're not going to do what our competitors do. We're not going to do what everybody else in this industry is doing. We're going to do this differently. And you've got to think about how to be different, because sometimes different is a lot better. Performance. As we start talking about some things that are really critical, performance becomes really critical in today's times. Everybody's working at home. Everybody's using Zoom and Microsoft Teams and other tools for conferencing. Shoppers are moving online because they can't shop in the stores. This is a trend that's probably not going to change drastically when the lockdown is over. People are going to get accustomed to working at home. Companies are going to like the work at home. I feel that's coming. So now is the time to ensure that your applications can handle that heavy workload. If you're doing web pages and you're doing applications that people use across the world, more and more people are going to use them in a different way. And you have to be prepared. Security testing, it's always been needed. Security has always been a big thing, and we've talked about it, and it's growing and growing more and more every day, especially now around privacy and data privacy for people. But with people working from home right now, companies focusing on discussing confidential information over the internet through their conferencing software. With the growth in online sales and usage, this also will not see a major return to the norm after the lockdown. We're always going to need security in our systems, and you have to be prepared for what's coming. Now, let me tell you who got their check, right? Any of you out there listening right now saying, I still haven't received my stimulus check in the U.S.? If you're in the U.S., did this happen to you? Were you one of the millions that didn't get the check when they were supposed to be mailed out or sent electronically? The reason I think that happens? Quality. The IRS planned for a regular tax season. They knew things were going to be busy in March, April, early first quarter. They knew that was coming. Speed to market was a priority for this. This was a new thing. Speed to market was a priority. Quality was not. We know that. It wasn't about being perfect or being good. It was about getting it done, getting the checks out, and getting it to people. And we saw things didn't go as planned. Our customers, our clients, our stakeholders, they're our lifeline. You don't even need quality if you don't have customers or clients. And the only way to keep them is to make sure that quality is very important to you and your organization. It's critical to customer loyalty. Quality should be smack in the middle of this slide right here, because it's one of the most essential things to making sure that your organization stays in place, that your customers stay happy, and that they don't leave. But let me tell you this. Statistics show that so many people delete mobile apps if they don't work. I'm one of those people. I'll give it a couple of chances, but once it's continually not to work for me, it's gone, and I take it away, and I don't keep it. It's hard to get that customer back when you lose their confidence. Quality becomes critical, to keeping happy, loyal, confident customers. And quality is more than just functionality. It is, because 21% of millennials interviewed said that sometimes they'll delete an app just because it has an ugly logo. Think about that. Think about that when you're designing and planning your logos, your web pages, and your systems. 57% of users say they wouldn't even recommend a company to others if it has a poorly designed website. And 26% of users say that they will delete an app simply because it does not meet their needs. We know that's happening. But let me tell you this. You first have to define what is quality. What does quality mean to you? The first thing you should do when you go back to your office, I guess it's your online office in your lockdown home place, but when you do that, talk to your team. Ask your team tomorrow, what is quality to you? What is the definition of quality to you? Because Jerry Weinberg said that quality is value to some person who matters. And when you look across the organization, what you find is different people have different views of what is quality to me and what does quality mean to me. The executives, now I'm not telling you right now that every one of these blocks are clearly defined, and if you go to a developer, they're going to say requirements being met and functional accuracy is the definition of quality. I'm using this more as an example of what I see mostly when I talk to different people in different groups, but you have to understand that each of these roles have different understandings of what quality is to them. And if you don't understand what quality is across the whole organization and everybody's definition of quality, then you're going to have some problems with communicating across the team. If you take nothing from this presentation today, please take the input I'm giving you that quality has to be defined across your team, and you have to understand what it means to every person on the team. Now let's pretend we're running a restaurant. If a project team was running a restaurant, especially in the years ago it would be like this, right? Developers would be your cooks. They're the people in the back. You give them the recipe, they give you what's ordered. The waiter, well, they're the managers and the product managers and the project managers. They're taking the order. They're listening to what needs to be done, and they're taking it back to the waiter and the cook, and the cook is developing the food. Now your checking in person would temporarily be your tester. And I couldn't think of a better name for them, because that's usually what I call the person that drops by at the restaurant and says, how's everything going? How's your food? And that's usually the person that you're going to tell, I'm unhappy. I'm really unhappy. The food is not warm. The drinks are not good. They're not refilling my glass. That's the person that gets all of the heat. Have we heard this phrase? How did we miss this in testing? That is the old school checking in at the end. We can't check in at the end. We have to change the way we're doing things. And we have many organizations that are doing that. A lot of new functionality, Agile DevOps, all of these things have really helped us to get better at what we're doing. But we can't be in this scenario anymore of cooks, managers, waiters, and checking in. We have to change. So what does change look like? How does change look for us, and how do we need to change what we're doing? The first thing you need to do is talk about your why. Now, if I asked you why you do your job or why your organization is in place, what would you say? Because Simon Sinek has a YouTube presentation out there. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely look at it. It's called The Golden Circle. If you search on YouTube for Simon Sinek, Golden Circle, it's about an 18-minute presentation where he talks about companies that most companies look from the outside in. They're looking at what and how and sometimes why. But the great companies are starting with why. He's got a book called Start With Why. And what he says is that every single person knows what they do. Just imagine you meet somebody at a social event. The first thing you ask people is, what do you do? Tell me about yourself. What do you do? You don't ask them why they do it. If you do, they'll think you're crazy. But some people know how they do what they do. But very few people can articulate why they do it. Your team has to understand what is their why. Your why is more than just what services you offer or what products you offer. Your why, if you're a retail company, your why may be that the customers are happy when they go into your store or they shop online. They're always happy. That's your why. That's your core. Everything else comes after that. What presentation wouldn't be good without the Breakfast Club? And if you don't know who the Breakfast Club is, you're nowhere near my age. But another 80s reference, and I want to say this. The Breakfast Club is about 5 kids who were from all different cliques. None of them talked to each other at school. They weren't from the same group. They weren't people that would normally be friends in school because they wouldn't have liked each other because they were different. They were all a different type of person. But they were in detention for one Saturday all day long. And they found out that they had a lot in common. And they come together and build a bond. It's a wonderful story. It's a great story about teams working together. And it's a really good movie. At the end of the movie, they wrote a letter to the principal. And they said this: "Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we had to sacrifice a whole Saturday in detention for whatever it was we did wrong. But we think you're crazy to make us write an essay telling you who we think we are. You see us as you want to see us, in the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions. But what we found out, is that each of us is a brain, an athlete, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal. Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club." You have to do that with your teams. We're no longer in silos anymore. And if you're still in silos, your success is going to be less. You have to work together. You have to figure out what it is about your teams. You have to learn about your teams. What makes them happy? What motivates them? Both with your peers, both with the other teams. If you're a tester, think about what the developers are doing. If you're a leader, a manager on the team, you need to understand how your team works. You have to understand what makes them happy, understand how they work with you, understand what their goals are. Again, understand what their definition of quality is. It's very important. And you have to be supportive. In my role, I'm over the project management team and the QA team. And the one thing I find is I get a lot of opportunities to drive that inclusion with the two, because those are two groups that sometimes work together and sometimes they don't. But it's important to make sure that we understand that we're all QA. Whether you're a tester or you're not a tester, we're all about quality assistance. Quality assistance is not my term. Someone else gave that to me, and I thank her for that. But quality assistance is where we're all in this for the quality of the product. It's not about who does the right job. It's about we do the right thing. If you're a tester, don't tell the developer his baby is ugly. Don't tell her baby's ugly. Nobody likes to hear that story. And yes, that's a really bad picture of me when I was a baby. I'm just kidding. It's not me. I don't know whose baby that is. I'm sure it's not even really a person. But I will tell you this. You have to learn to work together. And coming from a background of being a developer myself, I know how it is when someone tells me my code doesn't work. There's a softer, kinder, gentler way to say it. And you can do that. But you have to work together as a team. Now, quality is not just about testing and test results. It's also about processes. And I've talked about this with a lot of people in the testing community online this past week. And I've got some really good conversations going, because sometimes you can have a really good product that was tested very well, but maybe your processes aren't in place. But it's very rare that that happens. You really have to have a good process in place, and you have to understand how do those processes work for us, and how are we defining and following and auditing those processes. Mind mapping, please tell me, everybody, please tell me that you know what mind mapping is, because if you don't know what mind mapping is, please research it today. Look for it online. Mind mapping has been one of the most powerful tools for me and my organization to communicate with each other. It's the best way that I've found that we can talk the same language. Developers talk a language, testers talk a language, Scrum Masters, product managers, project managers, everybody talks a different language sometimes, and we all talk about our own stuff, but mind mapping really helps bridge that gap. Here's a perfect example right here. If you go out and you look at mind mapping tools and mind mapping examples online, everything is around, this login, accounts, users, installation, information. These are all features. And the beautiful part about mind maps is that it's your choice how you want to design this. It's a blank slate that you're allowed to build. I use it for meetings. I used it for a meeting 2 hours ago, and people after the meeting said it was really great how that this worked to really build and bridge the communication within our organization. Now, if you're looking for tools, here's a list of 20 mind mapping tools that were the top of 2019. The two that really stood out to me was Coggle and Xmind, and I will tell you, my personal opinion is Xmind has been really good for me because Xmind it has a free version that does everything I want it to do. Now, another 80s reference, the electric slide. We talk about shift left. When you think about shift left, that used to be just for testers, but we all have to think about it because we have to think about design thinking at the beginning of the project. We have to be able to identify together, not just in silos. What are our constraints, our roadblocks, our strategies, and how are we going to do things? We need to talk about the timeline. A lot of times the timeline's given to us and then we have to fit it in. We have to talk about what's reasonable and be able to do that within our organization. Security and performance, we already talked about those things. They're really critical. But when you think about performance, sometimes that could influence the type of environments that you have or the type of hardware that you need. So it's good to know that very early in the process. Every bit of your dedicated and detailed planning in the early stages of your product really helps the quality. And that's very important. As early as you can get together and work together as a team, you're going to find success. Testability. Ask a lot of questions. Testability is not just about testers. Ask the who, what, when, where, how, why. Be very curious about the product and understand, is that product testable or is it not? Think about these things. When you think about, is something testable? How do I test pleasant colors? How do I test must be fast? Something that's fast to me may not be fast to you. These are okay to be requirements, but they're not okay to be how you validate that the system is working. Because these are things that need to be expanded. Tell me what fast means. How does that work for me? Test-driven development. It helps drive QA engagement and inclusion early. It helps bridge the gap, any gaps that you might have within your test team and your development team. And TDD, it changes the mindset of the tester because now they're talking about how am I going to validate this product? And then the developer's working to build that product to map to how they're going to validate it. It's one way of knowing the answers before you take the test. And it really helps to focus on the development needs. I think of a personal example. This is my car, used to be. And this is my car when I had a wreck. And that wreck wasn't happy because I took it to the body shop and they had to work on the whole front end and replace the fender and the spoiler on the front end. And when they replaced the spoiler had cameras on the front. And this camera would tell me, I'm trying to show you with the laser, sorry. The camera would show me the left side of my garage and the right side of my garage. And I'd be able to tell when I was coming in, this is the dash of my car. But when the guy put it together, he thought he did it right. It looked right. The cameras were put into the spoiler, but he put them in upside down. Now, was he wrong? He did the right thing. He put the cameras back in. He put the spoiler back on. He did his job, but he didn't do what I wanted him to do. And as we understand how the stakeholders are going to use it and we drive it backwards, it really helps us in an organization. Thinking about then versus now, the old way, testing used to be at the very end. The old waterfall way, testing was scripted. Shift left was desired. We did code reviews and test reviews within our development teams and our test teams, but not necessarily together. Metrics were a lot about numbers. The new way, the way I see the organizations changing and our paradigm shift in our quality and how we're doing things is everybody's involved in all phases of the SDLC. Mind mapping, as I mentioned, and exploratory testing becomes something that's just really part of your everyday thing. It's more than just writing 10 steps and doing it. Shift left is required. It's no longer optional. Reviews are conducted together. You're seeing team. I hear people talking about how that their testers are involved in their code reviews or their developers are involved in their test reviews. And metrics starts becoming stories. And it's no longer just numbers. We'll talk about that in a minute. Automation is no longer good to have. Successful companies are using automation across the whole SDLC. Testers and developers are working together for continuous integration, continuous deployment, and test automation continues to grow, especially in the API and the testing space. I love this picture because I remember when this picture first came out and people started using it, it was a joke. And it was a joke because people used to say, I don't really test. I just wait till it's in production and we see how it goes. But that's changed. The definition of this picture has changed because now testing in production is common practice. And we must do it to stay in the game and be productive and to be competitive in the market. Data privacy. If you haven't heard about CCPA, you will. because the California Consumer Privacy Act was something that was implemented in January 1st of 2020, which allows consumers in California to decide they don't want their data stored in your systems. They want to be private. And it's going to come across all of the states. GDPR was a perfect example of that. If your company is not aware of that, maybe you're not using customer data, but if you are using customer data, then you need to be prepared if you're not already, because data privacy is a big constraint. Communication is becoming more critical every day. We have to talk about how do we communicate with each other. Escalations can no longer be a bad thing. You have to do it effectively, and you have to do it respectfully. There's times when you can be stern, and there's times when you can be really kind and supportive to the team. We have to build a culture of quality within our organizations. And we have to call out those risks. Risk is one of the key important parts of a testing organization's deliverables, but it has to be something that we all do now. It's no longer just a testing review. And we know that. It's coming from every angle. We've been doing that for a while, I'm sure. Thinking about reporting is a great area that I love to talk about. I could talk for hours on how we do better reporting and how we can do better metrics within our organization. But constant communication is critical. You got to focus on the metrics that tell a story, not a number. It's not about numbers. It's not about how many did we run. It's not about how many passed or failed. It's not about how many lines of code we wrote. It's about what did we do with this product, and do we feel confident in the product? You got to show value for the money that you've spent. Your executives want to see that. I see a lot of people online talking about how that their executives want more and more metrics, but they're not really sure what they want and what they want to see. And maybe the executives don't really know what they want to see. You have to help them do that. So here's a little joke for you. I love telling a joke. I love telling it in part of this presentation, so I want to share it with you. The joke goes like this. A young guy goes to prison. He's in his first day in prison, and he put him in a cell with a really old guy. This old guy's got a long white beard. He's sitting in the corner. And the young guy says to him, "What do you do here to make the time pass? What do you do?" And the old guy said, "Well, we've told all of the jokes. And we tell the same jokes over and over and over. So we're tired of telling the same jokes. And so what we've done is we've numbered the jokes. And we don't tell the joke anymore. We just tell the number. Because who needs to tell it all? Because we know what the jokes are. So I just tell a number and everybody remembers it and they laugh." And the young guy says, That's impossible. You're crazy. That's not true." The old guy says, "Watch." He goes over to the bars and he holds the bars and he says, 42. And you hear people laughing all the way up and down the prison cells. Everybody's laughing. They're kicking. They're throwing things. They're just laughing and laughing, and they're enjoying the joke. The kid says, "Wow." He said, "Do it again." He goes, 37. Everybody's laughing and enjoying it. And all he's telling is a number. The kid says, "Can I try it?" He said, "Sure, go ahead." The kid goes up to the bars and he holds on to the bars and he says, 42. Nothing. Complete silence. Crickets. He looks at the old man and he looks back and he says, 42. Same thing. Nothing. He looks at the old man one more time. 42. Nothing. And he's frustrated. And he looks at the old guy and he says to the old guy, "Listen, I don't get it. You go up there, you say 42. They're falling all over themselves. They're laughing. They're enjoying it. I go up there, I try it, and I come back and nothing." He says, "How does that happen?" And the old guy says to him, "Let's just face it, kid. Some people just can't tell a joke." And so that's my stupid dad joke for the day. But the reason I tell you that is you have to know how to tell the story. You have to know not only how to tell the story, but you have to know who you're telling the story to. Now, let me give you an example. Let's talk about our health. Every single day I step on the scales, and I hate it every single day when I do it. I monitor my calories. I look at my intake. I look at my vitamins. You plan your exercise. You look at your sleep. We measure everything anymore. Our watches are measuring everything we do. It is telling us even if we don't want to know. But you go to the doctor once a year, and that doctor looks at your overall health. And that doctor really doesn't necessarily need to see your health every single day. He can tell after a year, if you've not been eating well, he can check your weight. He can check your blood pressure. He can check your cholesterol and look at different things about you. That doctor needs to see the final results, the master results. So there's a difference. When you're thinking about your project team, you're looking at individual health. your daily reports, your defect reviews, your adjustments to the plan. And you have to talk in that language about how are things at the detailed level. But when you talk about executives, you have to be able to speak their language and understand what they want to hear. And overall project status, risks, mitigations, how do they get involved? When do you need to escalate to them? Those are the kind of things that your executives need to hear. So as we continue to expand and evolve and have a paradigm shift of quality within our organizations, we have to understand, how do we talk? How do we communicate? And how do we report? Now, metrics can be misleading. Honestly, I was standing in a stall in a bathroom looking at this sign, trying to figure out whether or not I need to do something. And if I did, what do I need to do? Because I don't understand what 0.35 is. Is that good? Is it bad? It says please do your part, but it doesn't tell me whether 0.35 is bad or not. Now, I'm not a sanitation guy, and I don't judge bathroom quality, so I don't know if that's a good thing or not. You have to be clear in what you're reporting. This metric is a really pretty metric. It's a really fun metric to look at, but it doesn't tell me anything about the quality of the product. This one's one of my favorites. I love Pac-Man, but it doesn't tell me a thing about the quality of the product. You see where I'm going? Testing dashboards. One of the things I say, whether you're in a development team or a testing team, the one thing I would suggest is get a testing dashboard similar to this. Kind of started with James Buck. Nancy Kellen created one similar to this. Give credit to those two. But I use this in my organization. My team looks at these things. And the one thing that stands out for us is confidence. Notice that on this report, notice that on this graphic, we're talking about the features, but there's not one number on there. I'm not telling you how many tests I've ran. I'm not telling you how many things passed or failed. I'm not telling you what % complete I'm done. I'm just telling you what is my confidence in the product. We have to speak in confidence. We have to talk about, are we confident in this product and what it's doing for us? We have to think that way. Now, everybody raise your hand if you love your job. This is the part of the presentation that I really hate because I can't see you. But I know you're somewhere in your home, locked down, raising your hand because you love your job. If you don't love your job, raise your hand. I can see it. But now raise your hand if you want to get better. Do you really want to get better? Do you like what you're doing, but you want to get better at what you're doing? I always use the example of Michael Phelps. Because Michael Phelps was an amazing guy who won more gold medals in the Olympics than anybody in the history of Olympics. We saw him compete only a few months. What we didn't see him do was prepare in the gym, watch his diet, watch how many hours he spent in the pool. To be really great at what you do, sometimes you've got to do more than just go into the office and do your work and go home. My dad worked in a factory. That's me standing up there in the beautiful yellow pants and my hat matching my dad's hat. But I'll tell you this, my dad worked in a factory and he was amazing. He still is an amazing man. But he didn't come home and decide, how am I going to work in a factory tomorrow? He went to classes and he did great and got many awards for what he did in the factory. But his job was different than my job. To be better in IT, to be better in the projects and the organizations that we're in, you have to figure out, what am I going to do beyond the 9 to 5 that is going to make me better? Now, don't confuse that with being a workaholic. Don't go back and tell somebody, I just listened to this idiot talk about how that we need to work more and we need to work all night and all weekends to get better at our job. You can learn a lot in your job. I get that. It means, what are you doing within your job and also beyond your job that is making you better? What kind of things are you doing? Now, we have social distancing, but it doesn't stop social media. It's an interesting thing, but social media is not going away. You got Facebook, you got Twitter, you got LinkedIn, you got webinars, you got meetups. Conferences are doing online conferences just like this one. You can get a lot of good information and learn from a lot of people by connecting with a lot of people out there. Connect with me. I'll show you my Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all my sites at the end of this. Connect with me. I can connect you with many, many people. Would love to do that. Would love to connect with each of you. Blogs and articles. There's lots of things that people are telling, and you're learning from their lessons. Their lessons learned. The things that they learned long in their career. Things that they're going to tell you, don't do because I failed. Don't you fail too. And before we go any further, you got to think about your own story. Get involved in writing articles. Look for opportunities to write blogs. Start a blog. Speak at conferences. And if you're afraid of doing that, speak at meetups. Someone wants to hear what you have to say. I had someone tell me one time, I don't really know what to write. I said, write what you did today. Write what you did at work today. Tell your story. Write it. Just write it. People will be interested in it. You'll be surprised. Now, if I ask you to raise your hand right now, I see all those hands. Do you have a mentor? I went out and I interviewed 267 professionals in a survey, and 243 of them said they didn't have a mentor. It blew my mind. We all need mentors. I'm not asking you to go out and pay for one. I'm not asking you to go and get one that helps you every day, but you need a mentor. And you need somebody that gives you advices and can tell you where they've been and where they've come from. I love being a mentor to people. A good way to learn from people is to listen to where they've been and what they've been through. When they've been through it, they'll tell you where not to step next time. There's a mind there, And there's ways to learn from different people with their experience. Get yourself a mentor, and it doesn't have to be just one. Find 2 or 3 people that you really respect in the community and get with them. Understand what they're doing. Understand how they do their job. What roadblocks have they seen in their career? And even more importantly, when you hear somebody that needs help, become a mentor. That's the best thing that I've loved most of my job in my career is helping a tester, helping a developer, helping a project manager, or a scrum master, or a product manager. Help somebody on your team. What I've found is when I'm helping people, I learn just as much helping them as they learned by me helping them. You can be collaborative. And I'll tell you this, people know you for what you've done, not for what you plan to do. In 2002, I started talking about writing a book, and I talked about it for 17 years. Every year I got a little bit closer, but talking about it is not getting it done. Don't just talk about it. If you've got goals, you've got ambitions, you've got things you want to do, plan for it. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Do a little bit every day to get you there. Which makes me ask you, what do you want to achieve in the next 10 years? What do you want to achieve in the next 10 hours? 10 days, 1 year? Just set your goals. Because you don't realize how life changes on a dime. We saw it with COVID. Steve Jobs says we connect the dots looking backwards, not forwards. Every single thing that happens to you can help you be something better tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So just keep thriving. And don't forget that you have the potential to change the world. For all the things you're doing today, tomorrow, next year. You don't have to be Sheryl Sandberg. You don't have to be Elon Musk. You don't have to be Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, or any of these people. You can change the world right where you are today, doing exactly what you're doing. But my question to each of you is, what are you doing to be great? Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited that I got to 43 minutes and didn't go over. But I thank you. I can hear you clapping. At least I hope you are, and not booing. But I'm so happy to be part of this. Thanks again to SmartBear. Thanks for letting me be part of this. Please reach out to me in one of the social media links. Happy to connect with you everywhere. And I wish you all the best in your future. Thank you. Have a good day.